Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed our latest episode where Alan and I did a scratching the surface rep all about fitting in versus standing out. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Jeff Fenster. He's the CEO of Everbowl. So Everbowl is a superfood chain that makes healthy eating affordable. They have created 21 locations on the West Coast in only 2.5 years, and it's a passion for Jeff. It's not just a job. It's not just a business. It's not just about money. He wants to help people be able to eat good stuff at an affordable price, and I want it to be in Massachusetts.
Right? The portions apparently are great as well. So, folks, I have a bunch of notes here about Jeff. One of the things that I said was, first and foremost, he reverse engineered. We talk about reverse engineering a lot on this podcast. He reverse engineered the 4 main excuses that people have for why they don't eat healthy. Number 1 was it costs too much. Number 2 was it doesn't taste good. Number 3 was that it wasn't filling. And number 4 is that it wasn't accessible or convenient. So what he did is he reverse engineered other people's pain in an effort to serve the world. One of the things that Jeff said most often that I wrote notes on here was that you have to do disruption by having fresh eyes in a new industry. In other words, standing out, which we just did an episode on. Jeff, this episode was absolute fire with Jeff, and do not miss it.
And you might think that, okay, he's somebody who has been in the restaurant business, but Jeff is a serial entrepreneur. He has an insane thirst for knowledge. So he's always trying to learn and grow, and he often does things that he doesn't know anything about and just practices them until he is good. So we hope you will enjoy this episode, and we will talk to you later.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good?
Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Today, we have a guest. He is the CEO of Everbowl. He is a serial entrepreneur and a speaker. We are sitting down with Mr. Jeff Fenster. How are you living, my friend?
I am living amazing, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I've been a big fan of your podcast. I've listened to too many episodes, so it's a real honor and pleasure to be on it today. Thank you, guys. We
appreciate that so very much. I'm going to let Alan explain how we linked up with you and how this thought came to fruition.
Yeah, so for the listeners, Kevin and I have had David Meltzer on the podcast 2 times now, once remote. We went to New Jersey to see him speak, and then we met up with him in Boston again and had an in-person interview. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, definitely do so. I believe it was 144 was the last one. But I reached out to David, who I am now fortunate to be being coached by, which is super exciting.
Super.
But I asked him, Dave, you were incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Now that you know of the Hyperconscious Podcast, sort of our mission, our goal for our listeners, who would you recommend to come on the show? And so David immediately said you, and I'm very, very excited to pick your brain.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Dave.
Yes. Dave is a good man, So speaking of him and mentors in general, I think I read somewhere on your Instagram that you have known Dave since you were a little boy. And I think that it took me a long time to understand the power of mentors, the power of coaches, and the power of surrounding yourself with people who are, where you want to be or further than you want to be. So can you speak on how important it is to get around people like mentors or coaches and what differences it made for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think why I'm standing here today and had any of my professional and even personal success has all stemmed from the fact that at a very early age, I was exposed to mentorship, and fortunately, it connected in my mind. I mentally grasped how important and essential mentorship is in development at any age or walk of life. Even today, I have mentors, and I'm always looking for more, and I try to give back and pay it forward as well. As you said, I met Dave when I was about 4.5 years old. Our moms worked together. And so Dave, being about 14 years older than me, he was kind of like a big brother, him and his other brothers. And they really adopted me, so to speak, because of the relationship of our mothers. I was exposed to them and around them when I was really young. And Dave, being who he is and a rock star, he impacted my life in ways that I couldn't be more grateful and thankful. I got the opportunity to intern in multiple companies of his from a young age. So when I was 14, I interned in my first company of his, and continued to do that while I was through my teenage years and early 20s during college and law school. And it really allowed me to understand that I could fast forward and kind of put lighter fluid on my career development and my professional development by being exposed to things that most young adults or early in their onset of their respected careers don't have access to. And so I embraced the idea of it's better to learn than to earn early. And I would say, hey, don't pay me anything. Let me just be around you. Let me hear the conversations you're having with this, and how did you connect with this, and just asking questions. And when you give someone your time and your effort and energy for nothing, just the sheer will to want to learn, most people feel kind of like, hey, you know what? I'm going to give back to this individual because they're truly coming from a good place. They're not trying to get anything out of me but information. And Dave, being the philanthropic rock star that he is, and someone who's always focused on giving back and giving to others, really embraced me at that age. And so it's been amazing. So that's really exposed me to allow me to be in a position I am today. And so I would highly recommend that anybody who is trying to learn from, get somewhere that they're not already, they should be reaching out to those who either have what they want or in the career path that they want, the relationship advice that they want, and ask for help, ask for advice. Say, I'll do anything. I'll come. I'll be there. I'll be a fly on the wall. And those kinds of things can really jumpstart your career, your development, or your improvement in any area.
That was
powerful.
I've been trying to preach the power of mentors for a very long time. I will continue to do so. That was very well said. That was the first time I ever heard the be more interested in learning than earning early on. That's absolutely fire, and I actually started doing that a lot during the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, so I believe that having a coach or a mentor who's micro, in other words, their day-to-day is your macro, so your dreams, they're like living your dreams, is absolutely imperative, and it's changed my life for sure. I have a lot of different self-made millionaire mentors, and obviously none of us are fully self-made. We all have help, but what I mean by that is they came from nothing. So for someone out there who wants to get more mentors, who should they choose? And more importantly, how should they go about the actual logistics? Should they email them? Should they, offer to interview them? Should they take them to dinner? What do you suggest?
I think that it depends on the who. So if it's personal, obviously, if it's a personal mentor because, you need relationship advice, you need personal development advice, and it's someone in a social circle that you have access to, I would do it much more personally. If it's professional and you really want to reach for the stars and you say, let's take a Dave Meltzer who is obviously sought after by millions of people all around the world, I think you need to do it a little different. I think you need to take a minute and look in the mirror and say, how can I stand out in a crowd? I think in today's world, especially with social media and how everyone is becoming influencers and posting content everywhere, which is great, now it's a very crowded space. And so, even myself, and I'm not on a Dave Meltzer level as far as world people knowing me around the world, my LinkedIn box is inundated with people asking me for advice, which I love. I'm trying to give back to as many as I can, but it kind of turns into white noise. And I can tell you the ones who stand out are the ones who are going to get the advice, or as the saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So find a unique and creative way to reach that individual that you want mentorship from that applies to them. And what that means is actually peel back the onion on them, learn about them. Don't just read their LinkedIn page and say, oh my God, Gary Vee has 1 billion followers. He's the rock star. I want to learn from him. So I'm going to send him a little message. Hey, Gary, can you mentor me? he's never going to see it. He's just not going to connect. Right. But if I find out something about Gary Vee, and I've never reached out to Gary Vee, I'm just using him as an example. But if an example everyone knows, but if I wanted to reach out to Gary Vee, I would want to understand something unique about him and find a way that will kind of blow his mind. And I did that for professional development when I started a digital marketing agency, and I partnered with a rock star named Neil Patel. I didn't know Neil at the time, and I just got a brief introduction. And before I followed through on that introduction, I took him in and I said, how can I stand out? Because I'm sure everybody who wants to know about digital marketing is reaching out to Neil. So just to give an example of how I did it, I decided, you know what? I'm going to go sell a client, a big client. I'm going to come to Neil with a big check and say, congratulations, I just signed our first client together, even before he knew who I was. Mm-hmm. So I did. And I sold a 6-figure digital marketing contract, went to Neil after someone made an introduction for us and said, hey, Neil, congratulations, man. I just closed our first 6-figure deal and I'm going to give you the entire check. And he was kind of like, who are you? But that who are you moment means now he's paying attention to me. And now I have his ear. Now I have the opportunity to say who I am and why we should either work together or why I would love his mentorship, and show him that, or her, if it's a her, that I'm willing to put in the work, that I don't want anything from them except them to expose me to the information I'm looking for. I'm going to put in all that effort. I'm going to take the initiative. I'm going to do it all. And really, instead of asking for them to do something for me, it's what can I do for you, pay it forward, and then I've earned the right to ask for that mentorship.
So from the sounds of it already, you are a jack of many trades, because we talked in the preamble. You said that you have a construction company. You're the CEO of a restaurant franchise chain, and now you have your feet as well in digital marketing. So you said something in the preamble that really blew me away, and you said you kind of struggled to find your place in entrepreneurship, and you called yourself a serial entrepreneur. Can you talk about what that means to you and how you've had to kind of stay flexible and learn a whole bunch of things along the way?
Absolutely. So like most kids, when I was in high school and college, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I interned a bunch in high school. I had a bunch of little part-time jobs, went to college, and actually had the opportunity to graduate a year early. So that was great in one aspect because I was 21 and graduating from University of Arizona. But the negative side to it was I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with myself. So Dave Meltzer, being one of my biggest mentors and kind of always stressed to me about law school and getting, he was a lawyer or went to law school. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to apply to law school. I want to be a sports agent like Dave. Dave was in the sports field. I was always a diehard sports fan. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to be a sports agent. So I applied to law school, but at the same time, I applied late because I only found out late that I was graduating early. So I also enlisted in the Marine Corps and had an enlistment date, and it was either going to be Marines or law school, whichever one happened. If I got into law school, I was going to go that route. Otherwise, I was going to be a Marine. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I didn't have one thing that just called me. Like some people were born to be a doctor or born to be a singer or born to be an electrician. Whatever it is, they just knew that was their gift. I had kind of, and I'm going to coin the term I've got now, but I didn't know it then, but I have basically entrepreneurial ADD. I love so many things. I have a thirst for knowledge. I love to learn. I want to be around so many things. And I actually love learning more than mastering. And what I mean by that is once I've mastered something or I'm very proficient, it becomes less exciting to me. Now I want to go back through the trials and tribulations of learning, AKA a little bit of entrepreneurial ADD. So ultimately, as I was going through that journey, it was kind of like, hey, I don't really have a channel here. So how can I go work in corporate America and do the same thing over and over again? It just sounded to me like the worst way to live my life personally. And I think a lot of people have that struggle and they hate their day-to-day because it's redundant. It's the same thing over and over again, and it's not their passion. And so, hearing the big sayings that everyone always says, find what you love and you never work a day in your life. Of course, everyone wants to do that. So I was struggling to try to figure out how. And so after law school, Dave actually left Lee Steinberg Sports Agency and spun off Sports One Marketing with Warren Moon. I decided I didn't really want to go down that path. I thought I did, but once I learned more about the field, I realized, again, same thing. I just didn't want to do that over and over again. So having law school debt at 24 years old, and I had a little daughter and a fiance, and I needed to make money, I had to get a job. And I got a job selling payroll services at ADP, the payroll company. And I was there for 6 months. And fortunately, again, luckily I have learned how to reverse engineer success in things that I try to accomplish and do by starting with the end. And so I was fortunate to be the #1 sales rep at ADP in the country, first to make President's Club, made a boatload of money. The downside was I built a massive ego and thought I was the shit. And so I had to kind of have to deal with that. So long story short, they offered in my contract, I had a $17,000 bonus that I was supposed to earn based on hitting certain metrics, which I hit. I went to my boss in January of 2007 and said, hey, I hit my goals. Can I get my bonus? They said, of course. You have to wait till the end of the fiscal year, which wasn't until July. I wasn't okay with that because I'm very impatient. So I said, no. I earned my bonus. Let me have it now. They said no. I threatened to quit if they didn't do it, thinking there was no way they were going to let their top sales rep walk out the door. I was wrong. They called my bluff and said, quit then. So I did. And then I started my own payroll company out of my mom's kitchen the very next day with a friend of mine simply because of ego and saying, you know what, screw them. I can sell these services. I'm going to figure out how to build a company around it. Not thinking I ever wanted to be in the payroll business for life. And it was really, I was only in the industry for 6 months when all this happened. And I had no idea how we were going to process payroll and build a company and do all these things. And so from that, what that kind of immediately taught me is we had a bunch of success with the payroll company and I sold it. And I realized, you know what, you don't need to have a ton of experience in an industry to start a company, right? A serial entrepreneur, as the term is, or, really means that what I can do is come into any industry with fresh eyes and disruption and find a way to be successful. And the experience side can be found by building a team. And so having not a specific one craft and having a passion for doing so many things and interests all over the place, serial entrepreneurship, again, as I've gone further in my career, I've been able to look back and reflect and get to the mental side of it to say, this is who I am and what I do. But that's a channel and an avenue for so many people who may be lost. They're stuck in their 9 to 5 and they're saying, you know what, I just want to get out and do my own thing. They should have the courage to know that, go do it. And you know what, if you're successful, great. That doesn't mean you have to do it for 40 years. You can do it for the next 3 years and then do something else and then do something else after that and really find your passions and run after them. So like the saying says, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Keep doing it till you don't love it anymore and then do something else that you love. And if you understand how to build companies and success around it, which, there's a lot of great mentors out there, and I'm always happy to help if anyone wants to reach out. I can give my 2 cents if it's worth anything. But there's ways to do that. And so, based on better defining those business principles, I found out how I could do it, and I think it can be done by so many others.
Jeff, you are an interesting cat, my friend. I am fired up right now, and Alan and I are looking at each other smiling. I wanted to ask you, though, let's talk about ego a little bit. I know we were lucky enough to talk to Dave about that, and he has amazing points when it comes to dropping the ego. But how did you get over your ego and realize, like, okay, maybe I'm good at this, but like that doesn't mean I'm the shit. I'm not the greatest thing ever. Like, how did you control your ego?
Well, at first I didn't know how. So when I started my payroll company I co-founded it with Brian Hansen. I had a massive ego because I had just become this top sales rep out of 2,000 reps in the country. 6 months in, I got all these awards and everyone told me how good I was, which obviously as a 24-year-old makes you have a big ego. Mm-hmm. But then having them tell me that, go walk out the door, we don't care about you, really put the little pin in the balloon, so to speak. And then learning just from life that if your ego's too big, it's actually a repellent. It repels everyone around you. And it really makes building your company tough. So as I got more mature and my kids got older and my wife and me went through the trials and tribulations of raising children, it really kind of hit me that, you know what, the ego is standing in the way of my success. So I came up with a term that I use now in every company. I stress it over and over with my team, no matter what position you are inside of a company, no matter what you do in life. Try to always be the dumbest guy or girl in the room. And that's a saying I have. It's be the dumbest guy in the room because I'm a guy, but it applies to females as well. And what that means is try to be as smart and intelligent and ready on every topic you can, but surround yourself with rock stars who are better than you. And so if I can surround myself with people who are better at every facet of the company than I am, then you know what? Our company is going to be an incredible company, an incredible organization, and I'm empowering others to put their DNA in the organization, to have the freedom to express their expertise and let them be the star. I'll take the trash out. That's great, right? Because it doesn't really matter to me. I'm a team sport minded human. And so with that approach of being the dumbest guy in the room, that's really allowed me to curtail my ego and surround myself with rock stars rather than repel them, which I did at the early set of my career. I think everyone has this feeling that, especially if they're a founder or a CEO or a high-level executive, if they don't come up with the idea and it's not their name on it, then they're almost a fraud, or it's not legit. They're not authentic. It's actually the alternative. The greatest team, like I don't know, anyone who follows the NFL, the Patriots have been the greatest organization for the last 15 years, and it's a team of individuals. It's not an individual star at all the positions. Tom Brady's great, but really there's individuals who are better than him, and they've built a team-first concept. The Golden State Warriors in the NBA, same thing. It's a team of rock stars, not one superstar who has to take every shot. So learning from others and understanding that your ego is what's standing in the way of your success, even as a parent, even as an employee. There's another saying, and I'm a big sayings guy, so I'll apologize.
No, keep them up.
I love it.
But if you treat your friends like your boss and your boss like your friends, you will find immense success both in friendship and in business. And essentially understanding that if you allow others to shine, it'll bring you up. And by default, you end up getting more of the sunlight because of that. Because, at Everbowl, which I know we'll get into later, but we have a team of rock stars that are incredible. And we're doing things that no one has ever done in this space. We're disrupting it in a way that's never been done. And while I'm getting a lot of credit, I can tell you, and I'll tell everybody, I'm the dumbest guy in the room. It's the team that I have is the reason we're able to do that. And what I'm good at is putting a team together. So ultimately, yes, I'm getting a lot of the credit, but I don't even deserve it. And I'm going to pass it to the people who do deserve it, which is the 430 employees that we have at Everbowl. It's because of them where we are. And I think the ego is what has allowed the dropping the ego has allowed us to build that, and myself to further, my own personal and professional development. So I couldn't stress enough that losing the ego is the most critical thing for humans. And if your ego is standing in the way, it's time to look in the mirror and understand that you have the power right now to change your life. Just truly drop the ego and watch what happens.
There's a great book actually called Ego is the Enemy. I don't know if you've heard of it, but for the listeners, if you haven't read that, definitely go out and do so. So Jeff, one of the main skills that's jumping off the page as you're talking, I think, is understanding human potential and then putting them in a position and then sort of putting lighter fluid, as you mentioned, on their flame to then go and succeed and then give them all the credit. That sounds like I'm reading a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I'm sure you may or may not have heard of it by John Maxwell, but I'm rereading it. I've been reading it for several years, and you're clearly a very effective leader by empowering other leaders. One of the things that I want to ask you, you keep on saying fresh eyes and disruption. What does that mean to you? And also, what do you look for in the potential of others in terms of character traits?
Great question. So I'm going to give you an example. So I started Everbowl, which is a craft superfood chain where essentially we provide different superfood bowls, and it's craft superfood, acai bowls, pitaya bowls, graviola, acerola. And our goal and our mission with Everbowl was to make healthy eating affordable, delicious, accessible, and filling. And in order to do that, most people would think, well, you must have been in the restaurant space. How long have you been a chef? How did you come up with? I don't know anything about restaurants. I didn't know anything about restaurants when I started. I never wanted to own a restaurant. What I do is I like fresh eyes and disruption. And so what that means is essentially I come into new industries with zero experience. So I have fresh eyes. And the fresh eyes component is critical because if I was surrounded myself with former chefs and been in the restaurant business for 15 years, then I'm kind of, my view on the industry is kind of already curtailed by all of the previous experience I had. And I'm going to do things the same way it's been done. So that's great, except when you do the same thing that everyone else is doing, you're just lost in the crowd. You're in the sea of people. And in today's world especially, standing out is critical. So fresh eyes gives you the ability to say, you know what, I'm going to do this because my own business acumen and my own personal experience tells me to do that. And if it's wrong, I can adjust, be change ready. But if it's right, great. I get to go in with fresh eyes. And then disruption is, I want to do it differently. I've never been successful doing something the same way everyone else does, because then I'm just like everyone else. I've always tried to blow it up and see what happens when I do. It doesn't always work, but fresh eyes and disruption gives me the opportunity to kind of stand out and be a rock star or excel in my own field. And so we wanted to go into the restaurant space and change the way it's been done because there's so many risks to opening restaurants. And you always hear 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. Location, location, location. It costs a ton of money. You've got to have great recipes. You've got to. I disagree with all that, right? So I wanted to come in with fresh eyes and disruption. And so I started a restaurant chain. I made the menu 2 weeks before we opened. I opened my doors and I said, you know what? we're going to start this restaurant under the concept of making friends and having fun, which is business principles I instill in all my companies. It's the 2 rules to work at an Everbowl. You ask any employee, what are the 2 rules to work here? It's make friends and have fun. We're going to make friends with everyone who walks through the door, and we're going to have fun all day. Food and music are the 2 different societal things that human beings connect with from birth to death and every life event in between. Music and food, music and food. So because food is so connected to us as humans, we need to get back to humanizing food. So when you walk into a random restaurant and everyone's on their phone and, robots are basically behind the counter asking you what you want and no one is making friends with you, it just comes down to how good the food is. But if you humanize it and you come in and it's a friendly, upbeat environment and you make friends with the customer, the employees are making friends with the customer, it's a different experience. And Starbucks has shown how it worked in the coffee space. So, it's a very friendly environment. In-N-Out Burger, same thing. They are extremely friendly. They've already proven that out. The making friends and having fun part allowed Everbowl and allowed me to do what I'm good at, which is kind of just making friends and having fun at the food side, and then disrupt the way we do it. And the way I wanted to do that was through vertical integration of multiple startups, essentially knowing that I'm a serial entrepreneur or degenerate entrepreneur, as my wife likes to say. It allowed me to run towards where my skill sets are, which is I love startups. I love to create new companies and put them systematically together to build something bigger. And so the disruption part allowed us to say, hey, how can we reduce the cost to open a restaurant, open them faster than anyone else has ever done it, make it to where we don't really have a competition because no one else can do what we're doing, and then change the whole way people think of the restaurant space to de-risk it and not make it such a cash-intensive, high-risky proposition.
My goodness.
My goodness,
goodness, Jeff. Okay, so you have 21 locations that you've opened over the past 3 years, you said?
2.5 years,
Two and a half
we
years.
opened October of 2016.
I want to make sure you get the credit you deserve. All right, 6 months is a long time, right? So, all right, so my question is, what are some of the biggest differences and lessons that you've learned, like, basically perception versus reality? Like, what did you perceive what was going to happen versus what actually happened?
Right. And
did you have any, like, real dark moments of, like, okay, this is like a sink or swim moment?
Yes. So opened the very first restaurant, self-funded it. It cost me a fortune. It did. It cost me too much money. We opened our doors day one. I remember it was me and Ben, my first employee. We were standing there in the first 6 hours. No one came in, not a single soul. No one knew what craft superfood was at the time, and we were selling a bunch of things that no one had ever heard of. And finally, someone walked in and looked at the menu for like a minute or two, and I'm trying to make friends with him. And I'm like, hey, how's your day? Thank you so much for coming in. You're our first customer. Couldn't be more excited to have you. And he was kind of blowing me off, like, whatever. And he looked at my menu, and he finally turns to me and says, can you just make me eggs and bacon? And I laughed, and I was like, unfortunately not. Can I make you something for free so you can try what we offer? And he's like, no, and he left. And I turned to my employee and I was like, this might have been a mistake, right? I shelled out $200,000 for this thing, and here we are standing here, and no one wants our food. And that was kind of a dark moment for me, saying, uh-oh, right? I just put in a bunch of effort and time into this thing and sunk all this effort into it. So that was kind of a scary, dark day. And so, again, utilizing the idea of fresh eyes and disruption, I said, okay, what can I do differently? So I said, you know what? I told my 7 employees, go tell every single friend of yours, family member, neighbor, anyone, that we're giving away free food on Friday, all day. And everyone's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, we're just going to give away free food. Come on in, have a party. Everyone's going to try Everbowl. They either like it or they won't. We're going to fail fast or we're going to succeed fast. But on Friday, as much of the city of Poway is going to know about Everbowl, they're going to get the food for free, and I'm going to pay for it. So we did, and we had a party at Everbowl. And everyone got exposed to a bunch of foods they had never really had before. And fortunately, they liked it. And so from there, all of a sudden, the sales started to come in. Customers started to come in. We started to really rock and roll. So 6 months later, I opened a second one. And now every time we open a store, we give away free food for the very first day, kind of in tribute to what we had to do with store one. And it becomes, hey, let's have a party at Everbowl day one. And it's a great way to train our employees, let them get all their friends and family to come in, connect with the community, show that we are not here just to, I'm not here to make money. I'm actually here to make friends and have fun. They get exposed to our culture. They get exposed to our vibe, who we are. And it allows us to kind of expedite that early stage. When you open a store, you always have that that build up time. It allowed us to expedite that and really get that moving.
So Jeff, there's a couple of different questions that are jumping off the page here. One that I want to refer back to, though, is you obviously have a very strong awareness of potential in other people. What is it that you look for? Let's say someone wanted you as a mentor. What is something that jumps off the page for you? This person's going to be successful. I need to put them in a position to succeed and or help them succeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you're enjoying this episode where Alan and I were lucky enough to sit down with Jeff Fenster. We just added another course to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com. So it is all about becoming the best version of you versus the anti-version of you. So something I always used to say was, what would the best version of Kevin do in this situation? Would he do the thing that is easy, or would he do the thing that he know is going to make him better? So that's the question that we have to ask ourselves on a daily basis. So we sat down and did a course on this. On the left side, it is the best version of you, the person who is following through on these habits. On the right side, it is the person who is kind of losing to the machine, saying it's too early, it's too cold, it's too far, I don't feel good. And you really have to lock in that best version of yourself if you want to achieve your wildest goals, dreams, and ambitions.
100%. It's almost like an alter ego that you have to step into. I remember when Coach Burt said there's a big difference between feelings and choices. A lot of us know what we should do, but sometimes we don't feel like doing it.
Yes.
These moments, this alter ego mentality, this best version of yourself, stepping into that is going to help you step up instead of step down in those courageous moments. So one thing I want to explain really quickly before we jump back into the episode with Jeff is this. If you go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com/free, there are 3 free courses available. 2 of those 3 courses will always be free. What are they, Kevin?
Your top 10 associations and the course we did on the compound effect.
Unbelievably valuable courses. Do not miss those. The other thing I want to say is that each week we're creating a new course that will be free for 1 week. Then it will be transitioning into the vault. How can they get access to that?
Well, if you go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com/courses, you will see the page that has all of the videos there. And if you click on one video, it will ask you if you want to subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you will get access to all of our vault. And we, like Alan said, we're going to be adding to that every single week with all the stuff that we were learning about. Do you think we should get back in the episode?
I do.
All right. We hope you enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Giving their best. So we have a saying at Everbowl and all our companies as well, which is, I don't care how many mistakes you make as long as you show up and give me your best. That's all I want. Effort. We can teach skills a learned thing. Effort, I can't force you to try. And I think too many people don't give their best, and that's why they're not successful. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Another saying that really means a lot to me. But I've made a career beating much more skilled and proficient people simply because you're not going to outwork me. I'm going to give my best every day, and I'm going to show up every day and try my hardest, and I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, and who cares? Because as long as you learn from it and you don't repeat the mistake, it's a life lesson. It's not a mistake. And so with the people that I mentor or anyone on our team is give me your best and we will figure out the rest together. And so that's what I look for, is anyone who is capable of giving their best in their own life. So you take a look at our executive team, you look at our employees, our interview process is very simple. Can you make friends with everyone who walks through the door? Can you have fun? And can you give your best? You answer those 3 things as a yes, I'll find a home for you at Everbowl or any of my companies, or as a mentee of mine, or I'll come to you and ask you to be my mentor if I'm swinging up, simply because those are the 3 characteristics that I think make successful people.
Jeff, so you just said something that, again, jumped off the page for me. You said, no one will outwork me. I have made that a part of my identity. I say, actually, no one will outfail me. No one will, which really means no one will outtry. When I found out that Michael Jordan took more shots per time on the court than anyone else, it made me realize that's why he was Michael Jordan. I will take more shots than anyone else. That's part of my identity. When did you create the identity of no one will outwork me? And clearly how you treat people is very important to you too. So where did that come from in your childhood or beyond?
So I don't have a specific moment, I think, but I think I was just drawn to, my parents, first of all, they're very type A personality. It was, you better get good grades. I don't care what else happens. You better try your best. If you don't, I'd have hell to pay. My mentors like Dave Meltzer and others that I've had throughout my career, all seem to also have that hard work mentality. And then understanding, I played sports. I'm 5'9", 165 pounds, and I played football, I played baseball, and I was always surrounded by I'm quick, but I'm not the greatest athlete in the world. And I was always around better athletes, but I wanted to be the best. And so how is a little guy going to do that and compete with the bigger, better, faster people? Well, it's got to be effort. So I think I was basically forced into learning early that if I don't try harder than you, I lose. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, if I just be relentless and I don't stop, I'm going to win more times than not just because I'm trying harder and I'm not going to quit. And so over time, that's just started to happen. And then I naturally loved Kobe Bryant was my favorite. I'm a Lakers fan. Kobe Bryant was my favorite basketball player growing up. And he was relentless. He was the same Michael Jordan type player, which is I'm going to outwork everybody. And then as you kind of start to understand who you are and you get more mature, you start to look in the mirror, you do a lot of self-reflection. You have a lot of time when you fail or succeed to understand why. All of a sudden you start to understand that you hold the candle to your success. You don't need help from anyone to learn. Just try harder than everyone else, because effort is really what it comes down to. Most success happens if you think about like a rock and how jagged a rock could be, but you put it in a fast moving river, 1,000 years from today, it's going to be a smooth rock. And as strong as a rock is, water will beat it just over time, being relentless, never quitting, never stopping. And so, being pleasantly persistent in life and consistently going for it. I like books as well, and I highly recommend. I highly recommend a book. I recommend it to everybody. It's Tim S. Grover's Relentless: From Good to Great to Unstoppable.
Yes.
He actually was he was actually one of the trainers for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and a lot of professional athletes. And in that book, he really goes through a lot of that. And I read that a few years ago, and it was like I was listening to my subconscious mind a little bit of what I had always kind of knew, but didn't have it framed as well as Tim Grover was able to put it in, frame it together and put it into an easily digestible method. But I highly recommend that book for anyone who is trying to understand more about how to be relentless. And if I could say one thing is, if you could lose all your skill, if you were just relentless in what relentless pursuit of your dreams and whatever it is you want, if you stay relentless and you wake up every morning and you kind of bust your ass the best you can, that's how you'll get success. And the last saying I'll give you on that is, I have a picture in my office. It's a picture of a lion and a gazelle in Africa. And it says, every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and knows it has to run faster than the fastest lion, otherwise it'll get eaten. And every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up and knows it has to run faster than the slowest gazelle, otherwise it'll starve to death. Bottom line, when the sun comes up, you better be running. It doesn't matter where you are, gazelle or lion on the spectrum. You better move, and you better move fast, and you better work your ass off, otherwise you will lose.
Jeff, that was absolute fire.
I know what you're going to say. Oh, that's my favorite book.
So I always carry that book on my person. I'm so glad you said that. It's funny because before this episode, literally, I told Kevin that we need to start studying more rather than just learning everything, we need to study specific skills. And I told him about a course that I just bought called The Relentless 13 by Tim Grover. I actually have a flashcard in my pocket with all of the principles of being relentless. Folks, if you have not read that book, please do so. And thank you for that, Jeff. That gazelle and lion thing. Who was it recently, Kevin, that said I think it was Coach Burt. We had him on the podcast. He said this: the people that I coach that are the wealthiest go to bed like they're broke and wake up like they're broke. The people that I coach that are the most broke,
they go to bed exhausted and they wake up hungry.
Yeah, but he said that they go to bed like they're broke.
Oh.
And the poorest people that he coaches said they go to bed like they're rich.
And don't you dare ask a question. Steal my fire.
No. I'm going to give it back to you. I'm going to give it back to you.
Make sure.
We're fighting for you, Jeff, here. This is a good thing. But that lion and gazelle thing is absolute fire. I know you liked that too as an analogy.
I did. Well, so what I was going to say, Jeff, is I resonate with you on several levels. Number one, I have never quit tattooed on my arm. Like, that is the motto I live by. Growing up, I was always smaller than everybody else, but the one thing I could do was take a beating. It didn't matter how much bigger you were than me. I've been thrown into thorn bushes. I've been beaten with wiffle ball bats. It doesn't matter. You will not stop me. It is not an available option for me. But also, it seems to me that Everbowl is very much a passion project for you. Like, this podcast isn't just a podcast to me. It is my life, and it's my purpose, and it's deeper than just sitting in front of a microphone. I have so many other reasons I'm doing it. So I know that you said your goal was to bring affordable, healthy food. Where did that come from? Was that like a personal experience, or where did you get the motivation for that?
So I'm afraid of illness and disease. I think it's easier to prevent illness than cure illness. I'm most afraid of like cancer and heart disease and strokes and all of the major things that are unfortunately killing a lot of Americans on a daily basis. And when I was 9 years old, my aunt died of cancer, and my father is a doctor. And I remember when I was a little kid saying, "Dad, why did my aunt die?" And not understanding death and not understanding the disease and how scary cancer was. And, he basically said it's a very scary disease and it's very hard to cure. So kind of in my young kid mind, hearing that made me afraid of it. And so once, the smartphones came out and Google came out and I could Google anything and learned about, if I sneezed, it means you have cancer, or if this happens, it means you have this. And it really made me go through a little dark time personally about, okay, I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. I came to realize that I'm afraid of illness. So I started to learn and look for how do you prevent it? And science is further supporting that, 85% of the diseases that are plaguing us, from diabetes to stroke to heart disease to cancers, a lot of them are induced by lifestyle and behavior habits. And so understanding that we're not moving our bodies enough, we're not exercising and being active, and we're not eating stuff that's been around forever. So what we created, and Everbowl is actually a player on this team, but my why, the reason I started Everbowl, my passion, is a word that I created called unevolve. It was unevolved singular. It didn't exist in the dictionary, so I trademarked it, bought the domain, defined it, to move and eat the way we were meant to unevolve. We've over-evolved in society with technology. It's great in so many applications, from business to personal to how we land robots on Mars, and what we were able to do with technology is incredible. But where it's actually a big negative is our health. We don't move our bodies enough, and we're now eating laboratory-created foods. We're eating stuff that does not make us best. So I really looked at that, and since my passion is healthy living and unevolved lifestyle, I wanted to build a business around that would make it easier for others, and how I could pay it forward and do my philanthropic side was make it to where healthy living is more accessible into our daily habits and lifestyle. And so I looked at movement and I looked at food. And so that's where Unevolve came from. So if you walk into any Everbowl store, you'll see Unevolve on the front of every employee's t-shirt, because that's the team we're on. And Everbowl's on the back of the shirt, kind of like the individual. So we support even our competitors who are an Unevolve style restaurant. But Unevolve lifestyle means you're going to move your body and live actively and eat stuff that's been around forever. And that's where Everbowl came from. Made from stuff that's been around forever, Everbowl. And so we sell any food that is made from nature, anything natural, nothing laboratory created. And you need to live actively. You need to move your body. And so that's the passion. And so I looked at, why do we not eat healthy? Because it's hard to make people move more. I haven't yet solved the movement side.
Working on it.
Working on it. But the eating side, I think I've solved. I know with certainty that there are 4 excuses every human makes to themselves when they don't eat healthy, and you justify it. And it's one of these 4 excuses will be the reason why someone will eat something bad for them. And if I can solve those 4 excuses, I can make everyone healthy. And so those 4 excuses are: it costs too much to eat healthy.
Yep.
It doesn't taste good. Doesn't fill me up. I'm still hungry, or I can't get it. But if I give somebody something that is delicious, that's affordable, that is filling and accessible, they're going to choose it over the unhealthy option every time. So if I gave you a bowl of ice cream for free and told you this is actually good for you, you'll eat it. You'll choose that over the bad for you ice cream, or whatever it's called, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Everbowl was meant to solve those 4 excuses. So what we did is, number 1, we give you unlimited toppings for one price. So when you come in, you can have every or any ingredient we have in the store for one price. And so that makes it to where it's not going to be unaffordable. Or you're going to like it, meaning you're going to choose what you like, you're going to like it. It's $9 price point now, but it was $8 when we opened, because a Big Mac meal was $7.94 when I opened the restaurant. And again, being the dumbest guy in the room, McDonald's figured out $8 was a price point everyone could afford. So we went with $8 to start. Now they're close to $9, so we're at $9. And so again, it was affordable. Filling, we give you a 24-ounce big bowl compared to our competitors that give you 12 and 16 ounces for the same price.
Big
so
fan.
Make sure you leave satisfied.
Big fan.
Yep. And then accessibility. I have to open stores everywhere, which means I had to really shrink the cost of opening a box down to a point where I can open them literally everywhere and open them fast. So that way you're not in a food desert. If you have 30 minutes for lunch and you happen to be in a small community, well, you only have access to fast food. I think the average American eats fast food just under 4 times a week. So fast food has really done a great job of making themselves available and accessible to everybody. We have to duplicate that on the health side. So that is why I had to utilize vertical integration to disrupt how you open restaurants and really reverse engineer how we were going to do that affordable so I can do it quickly and achieve that fourth one. So that's kind of the mission behind Everbowl, which is make access to superfoods and healthy eating available to everybody, or Everbowl for everybody. And so that's kind of the 4 challenges we're solving, and unevolved is the why.
I have a somewhat serious question. When are you going to be, flying out to Massachusetts and building these places? Because I'm intrigued and I'm hungry now.
Hopefully soon. We're working on our national rollout now. We're actually going to Arizona. That's our next spot, and then from there, we are really actively looking at how we can get national very quickly.
Beautiful.
So, and when you do, we'll have to do a round 2 in person. So, Jeff, I have a question that I really love to ask. It's basically this. A lot of times when you're very deep into a specific industry, you know things that from the outside other people cannot see just looking at the tip of the iceberg. One example is if you've never competed in a fitness show, one of the things you wouldn't know is if you look healthy backstage, you're going to lose on stage under those lights, because it's a very, I don't know if toxic is the right word here, but it's you need to get stupidly lean in order to win those shows. I have failed at them 2 out of 3 times, so I know. But that's something that you wouldn't know. If you look good backstage, you're most likely going to lose on stage. If you feel good backstage, you're most likely going to lose on stage. What is something that you would not know unless you were as deep into serial entrepreneurship as you? Like, what are some things about entrepreneurship that people just don't realize from the outside looking in?
It is very lonely. Very lonely. So the benefit of mentors as well, going back to that, is you have the ability to talk to somebody about the challenges and problems and trials and tribulations that you have. But, everyone looks at entrepreneurs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, whoever. You pick your major entrepreneur. It's lonely because you don't have a lot of peers. You don't have the water cooler to go talk to your peers and talk about your problems and challenges, because everyone in your organization kind of works for you. And so what that means is not, even though I don't believe anyone works for me, I work with everyone on my team. That doesn't mean that that's their psyche either, or that's not exactly how they're approaching it.
Right.
They're always trying to move up in the organization. There's a certain level of politics. They're not going to tell me how dumb I am when I make a dumb choice, or call me out on my bullshit if I'm speaking it, or hold me accountable. So the lack of accountability and the lack of a true peer inside of your organization, it's lonely. And so not that that's something that can't be overcome, but it's something to recognize early on, which is when you're going to go at it alone, you're going at it alone. And so finding those like-minded individuals like yourselves to have this opportunity to converse with other entrepreneurs and really understand that you will need a support group. You will want someone to bounce ideas off of, but no one's going to understand your business like you. And you are calling your shots, and you are going off instinct and your own. You are taking these risks alone. It is lonely. And I just don't think enough people truly appreciate that component. And so I think it hits a lot of people early on when they go at it, and they're like, gosh, I really don't have a group here that I can really get that comfort from, get that feedback from, bounce my ideas off of, that are going to give me the real advice, kind of like your parents would.
I'm glad you went there, Jeff, because that's something that Alan and I talk about a lot. I think we're blessed because we get to work so closely with one another, and our goals, our purpose, our missions are so closely aligned that basically every decision we make benefits one another. But, we've had mental breakdowns where it's like I don't often feel understood, and I think part of that is my own doing because I do separate myself from people. But this is it's a lonely climb, it's a lonely journey, and I'm glad you went there. Not because it's negative, but it is true. It is true, and I think, that's our goal, is to bring truth to the surface. So Alan and I both have questions that we ask every single guest, and now we will ask you them. So I believe that, we have 90 or 120 years, if you're Alan, on this earth, and we get to do whatever we choose with those years. Eventually, we're going to leave this earth behind and go to wherever it is we go. What do you hope to accomplish with your time here on earth?
I want to leave this earth with what do I want to accomplish, or what do I want the world to remember me by?
Either one.
Either one. Okay. Well, I want to accomplish everything. I have a passion for literally everything. I'm like a squirrel chasing after a nut as far as knowledge and thirst for knowledge. I think this world has so much to offer, and my biggest fear, one of my biggest anxieties, is I'm not going to get to experience enough, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It keeps me running every morning, but it also doesn't let me necessarily get deep enough. But if I can leave one thing on the world, is that I think everybody needs to, how do I say it better? I would say that I would want the world to remember me, that I gave my best every day and that I truly did care about others and the greater good. I feel like I could sell anything. I could be successful in any company, but that doesn't mean that I should do something that's bad for humanity. So I've really tried to focus on services, products, and different ideas or ideals that are better for the all, because we are all interconnected. I mean, we live in a society. We are human beings as a species. We are kind of communal. We don't operate as solo individuals. We're not like a great white shark swimming the ocean alone. No matter how isolated some of us may act and behave, we do better as a group, as a community. And so embracing the differences of one another, and I know it might sound a little cliche, but really losing what we look like on the outside or what our personal beliefs are. I mean, unfortunately, we're in a very polarized time, and I hate it, because I'm about making friends and having fun. And wake up, smile every day. You're alive. You're not wherever we're going to be 120 years from today, but you have the power to change your life immediately. And whatever challenges you're dealing with, they're minimal in the longer scheme of the world. I look back at some of the moments in my past that I thought my world was over, right? Or I thought it was the worst day of my life, air quotes. But I can tell you, if I put someone and drop them in the middle of the ocean by themselves, those problems they had today are no longer their biggest problem. So understanding that perception and saying, okay, you know what? I'm happy to be alive. How do I pay it forward? How do I build everyone else up? How can we do this together? Because the world is filled with abundance. It's not like if you are successful, I can't be successful. So doing it together, we can solve so many problems. And when the world comes together, humans have solved so many things and have conquered so many tasks, like going to the moon or going to Mars or solving this. And so anything I can do to be a part of that is kind of what I would like to be remembered for, that I tried, and that, my kids look at what I did as a human being when I'm long gone and they're remembering me. I want them to remember me as a good person.
Jeff, I have no doubt they will do that. You seem very excited for the future. You seem super optimistic, which is awesome, because there's a little bit of doom and gloom going on with some people. For me, I'm so excited for the future. Today can suck, but if the future's bright, let's get together and work toward it. I think that's leadership. So one of the things that I read recently, I forget which book, which is bothering me in this moment, but it was simple. It was simple, and I wish I realized this during my last intimate relationship, but it was this: the quality of any relationship, friends, family, co-workers, or intimately, is going to be predicated on the amount that each party appreciates each other's differences.
That's powerful.
I literally will live by that from now on. I wish I knew that during my last relationship, if I'm honest, because we all have differences. We all have different beliefs. We all are wired a different way. And when you can understand the other person's perspective and realize the value that they're able to bring, it's huge. And it sounds to me like you've definitely, if you've mastered one thing, because you keep saying you don't dig deep, I think you've mastered humans and their potential, which is huge. So now for my question. So you grow, you evolve. You've obviously had a hell of a journey so far that it seems like it's just getting started. It seems like just the tip of the iceberg of the compound effect. But there's something about us that I believe was always there, never is born, never dies. What about you, Jeff? Never changed?
Like from when I was a kid?
Yeah.
I think my thirst for knowledge. I'm one of those kids, I unfortunately, when I was a kid, my mom used to say, you never stick to anything long enough. And I was like, what does that mean? And I'd be like, well, I want to play baseball. I want to play football. I want to play soccer. I want to play basketball. I want to play hockey. I want to play guitar. I want to play piano. I wanted to try it all. And I stuck with the ones that meant the most to me, but just that sheer thirst for trying new things and then making a decision. Too often I feel people make a decision on something just based on their initial impression without ever giving it a try. But once you try something, then you can make that decision. And I think that thirst for knowledge has stuck with me. And while it was looked at negatively as a kid, I think I've turned it into one of my superpowers as an adult. And I think it's important that people turn weaknesses into superpowers and run towards their weakness and say, hey, how can I, it's like, I don't know if you guys ever seen that picture, but it's like, it's an abstract photo of either a old woman or a young woman based on how you look at it.
Yes.
But that is so true, right? That you can look at something and say, oh my gosh, it's an old woman. And I can look at it and say it's a young woman, and we're both right. And so learning how to turn a weakness into a strength is something that I work on all the time, because we all have our weaknesses. And so if you can turn it into a superpower for yourself, then that's how you become a superhero. And I think that's one of the goals that I have is to be a superhero one day. And so I'm trying to turn weaknesses into strengths. And I think that has stuck with me, that I didn't try to be somebody I wasn't, that I still have that thirst for knowledge and I'm willing to try a million things. And if I don't like it, I'll stop, but I can try it. And trying it first before I make a determination on if it's for me is something I've done since I was a kid.
Jeff, I love that you have a thirst for knowledge. I have a hunger for Everbowl. So let's talk more about, for the people on the West Coast, where can they find you? Talk more about Everbowl. I know we talked a little bit about it, but where can they find you? All of that stuff. Plug away.
Yeah, so Everbowl is in Southern California currently. We're in San Diego, Riverside County, and Orange County. We're going into Arizona. You can follow us on social at Everbowl Craft Superfood on Instagram, Everbowl on Facebook. You can obviously come to Southern California and try it, but we are going to be coming to a city near you. So please follow the journey and let me know. Send me a message at Fenster Jeff on Instagram or on LinkedIn or Facebook. And please tell me where you would love us to open them.
Boston, Massachusetts.
Yes, Boston, Massachusetts. We want to bring Everbowl to everybody. That's our goal. I want to help support the movement of being your best self and being healthy. And then, of course, anyone who wants any advice or wants to talk or wants to give me advice, I'm an open book. I'm always open to suggestion. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I love communicating, meeting new people, making friends, and having fun. So would love to hear from anybody, and anything I can do to help, I'm always here.
Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the show. One of the things that I want to say is that I've been thinking a lot lately. I've got several friends in Southern California, several mentors out there. I know we're going to be taking a trip at some point soon. I literally thought that this morning when I woke up. So I, without a doubt, will be coming in for your huge portions. That's my favorite part about your restaurant is the portion size.
Oh, yeah.
Not going to lie, as a bodybuilder, it is time to get after it and eat.
Yes.
Jeff,
and when you come, let's connect. I want to hang out. I want to meet you guys in person.
Oh, for sure.
Have a bowl together.
For sure. We'll have a bowl. We'll go get a lift and we can
podcast. Again.
Win.
That'd be great.
Jeff, we appreciate you so much. This was an awesome episode, man. And the biggest takeaway for me, and even from doing my research, is you seem like a genuinely good human being. And honestly, that matters more to me than anything on the face of the earth. So thank you so very much for sitting down and going hyper-conscious with us, my friend.
Thank you both, and thank you to your listeners. I appreciate the opportunity. It's awesome. I love the approach you guys are taking to podcasting. I think that it's so important to focus more on the conscious mind. Everything that you've done, all the different experts that you have, I'm honored and humbled to be on the show. So thank you, and really look forward to meeting you guys in person. Let's have a bowl and a workout.
We will, for sure.
We'll set that intention. We will make that happen no matter what. Thanks again, Jeff, for coming on the show. As Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, I only care about two things: how hard you work and how you treat people. Jeff, you work hard. You treat people great. I'm proud to be a part of your journey now.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeff Fenster.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode where Alan and I sat down with Jeff Fenster. Up next, we have a very special announcement. We have created, a new series of episodes for the podcast. So they are called 5-Minute Clinic. Basically, what we're going to do is sit down and share with you a lesson that we have learned through our experiences, and it's something that is fundamental for us now that has really, really helped to shape us, change us, and make us the men we are today. The first one is on why power.
So, folks, you've heard me say many times the following quote: if your reason isn't big enough, your excuses not to do it will be. If you're going to chase your dreams and do exceptional things and grow, it's uncomfortable. You have to have a big enough reason to get uncomfortable. There is no way around this. Stack the reasons and then follow through.
And we actually did it in, I think, 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So we are on schedule for that. It's a nice short one for you guys. We're going to be doing them every Monday is when they will be dropping, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we hope you will enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyper Conscious Podcast.
Going hyper-conscious will absolutely change your life, because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyper-conscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends, because the more people that go hyper-conscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyper-conscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.